If you do high intensity too often, if you're doing it every day a week, like 5 days a week for 30 to 60 minutes, you're not gonna be able to do that for very long. Even trained athletes don't train like that every single day, all the time. Hey there, welcome to the Coaching Corner podcast. I'm Jade Harrison, aka JD Gaines. I'm a personal trainer and streamer, and today I'm going to share with you one of the conversations I had with my Twitch chat recently about cardio. So cardiovascular exercise, or cardio for short, is an important style of exercise to incorporate in your weekly exercise routine. In today's episode, I'm going to give a breakdown on what exactly makes an exercise cardiovascular or cardio, and some recommendations for how to do it safely and to reap the most benefits, especially if you are interested in fat loss. We're also going to talk about the importance of incorporating cardiovascular exercise into your training routine, and also some other things that you can do to improve your heart health. I hope that you find this conversation helpful. If you would like to join me while I'm live on my Twitch channel, that's twitch.tv/jdgaines. Make sure to give me a follow there so you get notified whenever I go live, and you can ask questions in my Twitch chat. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Okay, let's talk about cardio. Cardio, everybody's favorite. So cardio, what do we mean by cardio? So cardio is short for cardiovascular exercise. So cardiovascular exercise or cardiovascular activity is anything that gets your heart rate up, where your heart is beating at a faster pace. So anything that gets your heart rate up can count as cardio exercise. The American Heart Association actually recommends, for just staying healthy, 150 minutes total per week of some kind of exercise or activity that gets your heart rate into that that moderate heart rate zone. By moderate heart rate zone, we mean where you can still talk, but like you have to breathe more frequently than what you normally would, or like if you try to sing, you can't sing, right? So your heart rate is elevated, and there is a specific recommendation if you're tracking your heart rate. You can actually like track your heart rate with a smartwatch or a fitness tracker, or you can take your heart rate manually, and there's specific recommendations to that we'll get into later on. Just keep in mind, our bodies are made for movement, and they look and they feel their best when we move often, right? So the American Heart Association's recommendation of 150 minutes total a week, when you look at that, it's spread out over the course of 7 days. It really only comes to like 30 minutes, 5 days a week. So you can very easily reach that goal by just going on a 30-minute walk or hike or bike ride, or doing something enjoyable like putting on some music and dancing in your living room. Taking a lap around your office building, anything that gets your heart pumping a little bit. Every minute counts towards that 150 minutes total per week. It's not really that much that you have to do just to reach the minimum for being healthy. But it is important that you do move often, and it's better if you can move more than that 150 minutes. Our bodies, when you think about what they evolved in, was an environment where humans were hunter-gatherers for most of our existence. And we spent majority of our time moving from place to place, traveling from place to place, and usually following a herd of some animals or going from one like grazing area to another. And so, we do look and feel our best when we have frequent movement built into our lives. Now, the majority of people in the US, unfortunately, do not move enough. We have very much a sitting culture that keeps people what's called sedentary. Sedentary is when you spend the majority of your day seated or standing still and not moving very much. And having a sedentary lifestyle can really wreak havoc on your health in a number of ways. Now, today we're specifically talking about your heart health, because cardiovascular means your cardiovascular system, your heart, your lungs, your veins, etc. The ability of your body to get oxygen and other nutrients delivered to the rest of your body. Your heart is responsible for that. But when you spend the majority of your day seated and sedentary, and that's what you spend most of your days as, it will also age your body really fast. Your muscles will get weaker. There's all kinds of things that decline in your health when you don't move very much. So it is a good idea to think about, if you don't move very much right now, start to think about ways that you can build movement into your life and get moving more, okay? And it is, in many ways, a life or death topic of discussion, right? So here's just a couple of facts from the CDC. Heart disease is the leading cause of death for men, women, and people of most racial and ethnic groups in the United States. One person dies every 33 seconds in the US from cardiovascular disease. And there are about 700,000 people in the United States that died from heart disease in 2021. So that's like 1 in every 5 deaths is from heart disease. Coronary artery disease, which is a type of heart disease, is the most common type of heart disease, and it kills about 375,000 people, or it killed about 370,000 people in 2021. About 1 in 20 adults age 20 and older have coronary artery disease. And about 2 in 10 deaths in 2021 were from coronary artery disease, with adults who were younger than 65 years old. So you don't even have to be super, super old to be in danger of this. Heart attack also affects so many adults in the US. In the United States, someone has a heart attack every 40 seconds, okay? And every year, about 800,000 people in the US have a heart attack. So, the thing is, what causes heart disease, what causes heart attacks, is high blood pressure, high blood cholesterol. These are the things that lead often to having a heart attack or having coronary artery disease. And because it affects so many of us, it's something that we all need to think about. And there are things that we can do to reduce our risk, okay? It's definitely something that, of course, there are genetic factors, but there's a lot that we can do to reduce our risk of developing coronary artery disease and having a heart attack, okay? But one of the most important things to do is get your blood pressure and get your blood drawn to test your blood cholesterol frequently, because these two things, blood pressure, high blood pressure, and high blood cholesterol, are often called silent killers because they don't have any symptoms. So you may not even know that you are very, very close to having a heart attack, or that you have coronary artery disease. You may not know because you have no other symptoms. It can just hit out of nowhere. So it's very important that you go to the doctor frequently, or that you can test your blood pressure like at a pharmacy. A lot of times they have those little things that you can sit down on, and it will like put the cuff over, and it will give you your blood pressure. So it's important to get that done frequently. With your blood cholesterol, that's a blood drawn type of thing. But there are things that you can do to reduce your risk of having high blood cholesterol. So let's talk about ways that we can keep our heart healthy, in addition to cardio, which we'll talk about how to do. But it's not just about exercise more. A lot of this has to do with how you eat, right? How you eat, and whether you exercise or move very much at all has the biggest impact on your risk of heart disease, okay? So getting moving and exercising regularly is one of the best ways that you can keep your heart healthy. Trying to get that 150 minutes total per week that the American Heart Association recommends is a great place to start. And this can be as simple as going on a walk 5 times a week for 30 minutes. You could do that at lunchtime, right? You can do this after work, after dinner. A lot of cultures actually have a practice of going for a walk after dinner, which is a great idea because it not only helps your heart health, but it actually helps you to digest your food better. It helps to reduce the spike of sugar into your bloodstream from the food that you eat. So it's a generally a good practice to have. So just thinking about going on a walk after dinner or going on a walk after lunch, and you don't have to do it every day. 5 days a week is enough. But if you do it every day, you're probably going to feel even better. And then generally eating a healthy diet, reducing your intake, especially of saturated fats. Saturated fats are the type of fat that's generally solid at room temperature, and they come mainly from animal products. So animal products being, like animal fat, dairy cream, okay, like whole milk, egg yolks, the skin. So if you get like chicken breast with like the skin on, and it also comes from the types of oils that like fast food or fried foods are often fried in. Tallow, yep. So these are all saturated fats, and we want to reduce, or even you can even eliminate your intake of saturated fats. That's a great way to keep your cholesterol levels healthy. And eat plenty of unsaturated fat. The majority of the fat that you eat should come from unsaturated fat. Now, this is mainly from vegetable sources. It comes from nuts and seeds, olive oil, avocado oil. You can also eat olives and avocados. These help to raise your HDL good cholesterol levels, which help to lower your LDL bad cholesterol levels. So generally eating a healthy diet, following the healthy plate model is a great way to do that without even having to track or like totally radically change how you think about food. Just keep this model in mind when you sit down to construct a plate or plan your meals. Or if you're at a restaurant and you're ordering a meal, look for something that where half of the plate you can fill with vegetables, and then on the other half of the plate, fill it with a lean source of protein. That's a source of protein that's low in fat or low in saturated fat, because you can do fatty fish. Fatty fish is, the fat from fish is unsaturated, so that's okay. And then for your grains and starches, try to limit that to a little bit under a quarter of what you put on the plate. Make sure that you're also most of the time choosing high fiber sources. So that means like your starchy vegetables like potatoes. And then if you're eating a grains-based food, most of the time you want that to be a whole grain food. So like whole wheat bread, quinoa, brown rice, that kind of thing. Following this model is a good general rule of thumb that you can follow to clean up your diet and help to improve your heart health and your cholesterol levels. So these are like the main things, right? That those two things alone, getting regular exercise or moving more, and then cleaning up your diet are just like the top ways to reduce your risk of heart disease. Managing your stress, though, is also really important, because when you stay in a heightened state, right, if you have a lot of chronic stress, that puts a lot of pressure on your cardiovascular system and can increase your risk of heart disease and increase your risk of heart attack. So that's another thing that you want to keep in mind and consider. Also, getting quality sleep. Getting plenty of quality sleep, sleeping as much as your body needs, is another great way to reduce your risk of heart disease, as is limiting or eliminating your alcohol intake. Alcohol puts a lot of pressure on your cardiovascular system, as well as other systems too. There's really no health benefits when it comes to drinking alcohol. The latest studies show there's no benefits at all. No amount of alcohol is really like risk-free. So drinking alcohol, do it at your own risk. Do it sparingly if you are going to be drinking alcohol. Because not only does it put you at higher risk of having a heart attack or developing heart disease, but there's a ton of other negative impacts that it can have on your health. Another thing that you can do to improve your heart health is to quit smoking, okay? Smoking is horrible for your cardiovascular system. Smoking damages your blood vessels, it increases blood pressure, it raises the risk of heart disease and stroke. And I know it's really hard to quit. I know. That one's a hard one, but it is so well worth it. Even if you reduce your smoking, and that's really a good way to start when it comes to trying to quit smoking, is just kind of like taper off over time. But quitting smoking is such a great way to reduce your risk. Smoking tobacco. Also, know your family history. If you have someone in your family who has died of heart disease, or who has heart disease, or who has died of stroke or a heart attack, you need to know that, and that puts you at higher risk, so you want to be aware of it. And make sure that you're getting regular health checkups with your doctor, okay, or your healthcare provider, just to keep an eye on that stuff, get tested. But another thing that you can do to help your heart to function, how your cardiovascular system to function better, is to stay hydrated, which is good for so many reasons. But of course, staying hydrated. Dehydration can strain the heart and affect its ability to pump blood efficiently. Okay, so these are all different ways that you can improve your heart health. Now, today's focus is particularly on the exercise portion of keeping your heart healthy, because there are some specific recommendations for how you can exercise to maximize the cardiovascular benefit that you can get from your workouts. That list of things that we just went over are super important to incorporate into your life as well. But let's talk about specifically the way that you can exercise to get the most bang for your buck in terms of your cardiovascular health. Now, cardio, short for cardiovascular exercise, is, again, any exercise that gets your heart rate up, or any activity, I should say, that gets your heart rate up. Now, the American Heart Association, again, has that 150 minutes goal that I think is a really good place to start with as a goal. So you want to go for, when you're trying to go for your 150 minutes goal per week, what the AHA, or the American Heart Association, recommends is that your heart rate be between 64% and 75% of your max heart rate. That's what it needs to be in order to count as moderate intensity. That's your moderate intensity zone. So you can easily figure out what that would be by using this little super duper calculator. So this from active.com, you can put in your age. So I am 35. And then remember, moderate intensity is 64% as the minimum. So we'll go to 64%. Calculate. Okay, so this gives me the minimum. My minimum for moderate intensity is 118 beats per minute. Let's get the high end. So at the minimum, I want my heart rate to be at 118 when I'm doing my moderate intensity exercise. And then the high zone is 75. 75? Calculate. So 138. So that's the high end range. So I want between 118 and 138. That's where my heart rate needs to be for it to count as moderate intensity exercise. So a super easy way to make sure that your heart rate is where it needs to be while you're exercising is to wear some kind of a fitness tracker. So I have an Apple Watch, and when I set it to exercise mode, it tells me what my heart rate is. You can also use like a Fitbit. Fitbits are also really good for that. Some of my clients use heart rate trackers that it's like a little belt that you wear around your chest, and that measures your heart rate. Those are generally a little bit more, they're a little bit more accurate. And you can also track manually, but I don't recommend stopping for an entire minute to take your heart rate to get how many beats per minute you're at while you're in the middle of your workout. So that measurement that we're looking for, those numbers, it's for 118 and between 118 and 138 for me, that's beats per minute. So that at the low end, for me to be in my moderate intensity zone, I want my heart to beat 118 times minimum in the span of 1 minute while I'm exercising, right? So in order to track your heart rate, what sometimes people will do is like stop what they're doing, or they'll just keep walking and they'll find their pulse. And you can find your pulse here at your wrist, or under your ear, under your jaw here. You want to find where you can feel your heartbeat. You want to use your 2 fingers, not your thumb, because your thumb has its own pulse, okay? So you find your pulse, and then you can take it for an entire minute. Set a timer for a minute on your watch, and then count the number of beats that you feel. That's a long time, especially if you're doing like higher intensity. It's a long time to stop for an entire minute. So what I recommend is that you get a 10-second count. So you can set your timer for 10 seconds and then count how many beats you feel in that 10 seconds. So you want to know what your 10-second count is. So take your heart rate target zone. For me, that's between 118 and 138. Divide that by 6, because 6 by 10 is 60, which is the seconds. So to get a 10-second count, divide your goal by 6. So for me, my low end is 118 beats per minute. If I was going to do a 10-second count, that would be 19-ish. 138 divided by 6 is 23. So now I have my 10-second count, my beats per 10 seconds. So when I stop and I find my pulse for 10 seconds, I count it. I'm looking for my heart to beat between 19 and 23 times during that 10 seconds. So that's one way that you can make sure that whatever your exercise is that you're in that moderate intensity zone. Monitor it through a fitness tracker or just do it manually. You can also for whatever type of exercise you're doing, if you don't want to fuck with the heart rate stuff, you can just use the talking test, which I mentioned earlier. For the talking test, you basically talk out loud. You can call a friend, or you can try to recite a poem or the Pledge of Allegiance. You should be able to do that. You should be able to talk when you're in the moderate intensity zone, but you should not be able to sing, okay? If you can sing, then your heart rate is not high enough. You need to pick up the pace a little bit or add some more resistance, move faster, challenge yourself more. But if you can't sing, but you can talk, you know that you're in the moderate intensity zone. Even in the high intensity zone, you should still be able to talk, but it's like in just a couple words at a time, right? So that's another like way that you can track your how hard you're working. So again, you want to be at that 64 to 75% of your max heart rate for at least 150 minutes per week. So let's talk about different ways that you can do cardiovascular exercise, types of exercise to get your heart rate up. Excuse me. So the number one way to get your heart rate up is just to do daily living activities. There's lots of activities of daily living that you can do and get your heart rate up. Like cleaning your house, right? When you're up and you're moving around, having to move things, when you're just in motion, any kind of activity of daily living, like tidying up and cleaning, is a great way to get your heart rate up, and that counts. So like cleaning your house definitely can count towards your cardiovascular goal for the week, especially if you're monitoring your heart rate and it's getting up into that heart rate zone that you calculated before. I actually had a client a couple years ago, and she was a homemaker, and we made her cardio, her doing her chores every day. And it helped her to be consistent on her chores and keep her house clean the way that she wanted to. And it was a great way for it to count both ways. And I love when we can do that. So or if you're like me and you have ADHD and you struggle to do your chores, setting it as like, this is my cardio, this is my exercise, as well as, keeping my space clean. So if you struggle with making sure that you vacuum or mop frequently or clean your bathroom frequently, or, do other chores of tidying up or rearranging your furniture, that kind of thing, anything that gets your body active, actually counts. Gardening is another one that many of my clients do yard work, right? That counts as their cardio. It works and it does the thing. So anything that gets you moving, even daily activities like gardening or cleaning your house, they count. Another probably the most popular way of doing cardio is what's called steady state cardio. Steady state cardio is a type of exercise where it's like a repetitive type of movement, like walking, hiking, biking, hopping onto a cardio machine, like a rowing machine, an elliptical, anything that kind of is like a repetitive movement that you keep doing over an extended period of time, longer than like 5 minutes, okay? And when you're doing steady state cardio, you're generally trying to get your heart rate into that moderate intensity zone and then keep it there. That's why it's called steady state. So you're trying to keep your heart rate steady at whatever your moderate intensity heart rate zone is. And you usually are going to do this for at least 10 minutes for a cardio workout. So steady state is awesome, not only as a cardiovascular exercise to do like in its own right to get your heart rate up, but I actually have my clients do steady state cardio as part of their warm-ups before they do weight training. Because it gets the heart rate going, it gets blood flowing to the muscles, it helps to raise your core temperature, and it's a great way to prime your body before you start lifting weights. And that's why many times before I get my own workouts in, when I'm here on Twitch, I'll either hop on my elliptical or I'll take my dog for a quick walk around the block, as part of my warm-up. And with steady state, you generally want to see your heart rate kind of like staying at that, whatever your moderate intensity zone is. Now, a lot of people find steady state cardio to be really boring and just can't stand it. I have many clients that this is true for. So for those people, what I generally recommend is activities of daily living, right? Something that's active, that's going to, keep them moving while they're also doing something else. But I also will recommend what's called circuit training. So circuit training is when you do a series of exercises in a row where you're like alternating between multiple exercises, at least 2 exercises, and doing them back to back. A lot of times what I'll do for my clients is like have them do a circuit of 3 to 5 exercises generally, and you'll do one exercise for 25 seconds and then you get 10 seconds to rest. And if I'm training them in person, a lot of times I'll do it in stations. So I have one station, this is the jumping jack station, and then they move to the box squat station, and then there's a plank station. And with these circuits, you don't necessarily need to use like traditional cardio exercises to get your heart rate up. You can do exercises that are traditionally part of resistance training. Because you're like moving from one station to another. Just moving from one station to another can keep your heart rate up. Now, the goal here is not necessarily going to be to challenge your muscles. You're going to be limited in how much muscle growth you're going to get by training this way, because the goal is to get your heart rate up when you're doing circuit training for cardio. But it is a much more fun way, a much more interesting way to get your heart rate up and do a cardiovascular workout. I like to use the Tabata timer app when I'm doing circuit training for my clients, or high intensity interval training, which we'll talk about next, to set a timer for like 25 seconds on, 10 seconds off. But you can also do circuits based on number of reps, where you say you're going to do 15 squats, and then you're going to move to doing a 30-second plank, and then you're going to stand up and you're going to do 25 jumping jacks, and you're going to repeat that for a couple of different rounds, and then do 3 different exercises. So circuit training, really you can use any type of exercise as long as you can execute the exercise with good technique to keep your body safe. Okay, so this is a really fun way. This is basically what I had all of my clients do when I used to teach boot camps and group fitness classes. It was almost always circuit training, because you get a lot of variety. It's always interesting, and you're not doing the same thing for too long, so it kind of stays interesting, and the time passes pretty quickly. Now, another type of cardio that a lot of people are into, that's like really, really been popular over the last couple of years, is called high intensity interval training, or HIIT training. High intensity interval training is when you alternate between doing an exercise and then resting, or doing some kind of active rest. And you do that for several rounds, where you do the exercise and then you take it easy, or you rest, and then you do the exercise and then you take it easy. And you alternate between like active and less active for some period of time. So this is a really popular way to train for people who don't have a lot of time to put into their workouts. Like if you only have 15-20 minutes and you want to get a good cardio session in, high intensity is awesome. It's going to put your heart rate into what's called the high intensity zone, which is higher than your moderate intensity zone. But something to keep in mind here is that when you do high intensity exercise, which is specifically when your heart rate is at between 76 and 93% of your max heart rate. When you do any kind of exercise that gets your heart rate that high, every minute where your heart rate is in that higher zone actually counts twice towards your 150-minute total that the American Heart Association recommends. So this is a great way to get the more bang for your buck. So it's going to suck more, right? It's going to be harder because your heart rate is going to be pumping a lot more, but each minute counts twice. So you don't have to work out as long. And that's why a lot of people really like high intensity interval training. You don't have to work out quite as long. You can do like a 15-20 minute workout after you warm up and just hit your heart rate really high. And then just make sure that you do a proper cool down. You don't want to just go full stop at the end of a HIIT training session and just like lay down on the floor or sit down. Make sure that you take a good 5 minutes to cool down, get your heart rate back to a moderate intensity zone and then to a low intensity zone before you sit down or jump in the car and drive away. Now keep in mind, you can turn any exercise into a HIIT workout. You don't necessarily need to use traditional cardio exercises like jumping jacks or plyometric squats. I have run HIIT workouts with clients doing push-ups, okay? You can use resistance training exercises as HIIT in your HIIT workout. A really popular style of HIIT workout is what's called a Tabata. And a Tabata is you pick one exercise, and you're going to do that exercise for 20 seconds, and then you rest for 10 seconds, and then you do it again for 20 seconds, and then you rest for 10 seconds, and you do this for 8 rounds. And then when you get to the end of the 8 rounds, it's about 4 minutes, you rest for 30 to 60 seconds, and then you do a different exercise. So you're just focusing on one exercise, you do it, and then you rest, and then you do it, and then you rest. 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 8 rounds. This is one of my favorite ways to get through my cardio really quickly because it passes pretty quickly. And you can use any exercise, right? Now, I do want you to keep in mind that you do not necessarily need to do high intensity cardio. High intensity cardio, like being in that 76 to 93% of your max heart rate, it's not necessary. If you don't enjoy high intensity cardio or high intensity training, you do not have to do it. There is nothing wrong with just doing moderate intensity, steady state for your cardio. It works, okay? That's acceptable. It's going to benefit your heart health. The high intensity is there as an option for you if you are limited on time and you just want to get the shit done. If you want to just hit it hard, get it done within 15 to 20 minutes. Because 15 to 20 minutes of a high intensity workout, a high intensity circuit or high intensity interval training, that counts as 30 to 40 minutes of moderate intensity, right? Because each minute counts twice. But there is a limit to how much is recommended for you to do of high intensity training, cardio training per week. Doing too much can put you at risk of burnout or overuse injuries. So experts recommend in general that over the course of a week, no more than about 40 to 50 minutes of high intensity with your heart rate above 85% per week. So if you calculate what your heart rate is at 85% of your max heart rate, you don't want to do more than 40 to 50 minutes at that heart rate per week, just to keep your symptoms of overreaching or overtraining, keep your risk low. And if your heart rate gets above 90%, if you're training at your heart rate at above 90%, you don't want to do more than 30 to 40 minutes of that cumulative per week, okay? So in general, when I have clients who do high intensity training, what I'll often do is just have them do it once or twice a week, and then the rest of their cardio will be steady state, or the rest of their cardio will be some kind of moderate intensity circuits, okay? If you do high intensity too often, if you're doing it every day a week, like 5 days a week for 30 to 60 minutes, you're not gonna be able to do that for very long. Even trained athletes don't train like that every single day, all the time. So you wanna keep a limit on it, no more than, I say, like 2 or 3 times a week, depending on how hard you're pushing yourself. If you're at 80% or higher, you don't wanna do more than 40 to 50 minutes per week. If you're at 90% or higher, no more than 30 to 40 minutes per week. Okay, so one more thing that I do want to say on cardio is if you are interested in fat loss, okay, if that's your main concern with exercise, and that's the main reason why you are exercising, it's very common for people to do a ton of cardio for fat loss because cardio in general, within the span of the workout, is going to burn more calories than a resistance training workout or a mobility workout. So within the workout itself, you'll burn more calories. Certain exercises and certain types of exercise burn more calories than others. In general, the faster you move, the more resistance that you use, the harder that your heart has to pump, the more you're going to burn calories. If you want to know in general how many calories an activity burns, you can take a look here. If you are biking or cycling, and if you're going on a mountain bike, if you're 130 pounds, you can burn 500 calories in an hour. If you're heavy, you're going to burn more calories because your body has to move more mass. Stationary cycling, a little bit different. If you're going at a moderate pace, you can burn 400 calories in an hour. Now, not everybody's going to be doing steady state for an hour. Most people that I know usually do it 20 to 30 minutes. So if you want to know how many calories you can potentially burn in a workout, if you're doing 20 to 30 minutes, just take this number and half it. So probably like 200 calories, right? Between 200 and 325 calories of stationary cycling. So yeah, as you can see, some exercises are going to burn more calories than others. And it also depends on how fast you're moving. Like if you're rowing at a light pace, you're going to burn fewer calories. If you're going really fast, you're going to burn more calories. On the topic of fat loss, even if you are exercising pretty vigorously, let's take 180 pounds as an example. If you're 180 pounds and you are using the rowing machine in 30 minutes, going pretty vigorously, at most, the amount of calories that you're going to be able to burn is 350. And you're working hard, right? And that the harder that you work, the harder it's going to be for you to recover from. So this is why I stress, if you are interested in fat loss, it's very important that you manage that mainly through what you eat. It is a lot easier to just avoid eating 350 extra calories than it is to work off. Like, it's harder to work off 350 calories than it is to just avoid eating them. It's super easy to eat 350 calories. That's like granola bar. That's a granola bar and a half, right? Super, super easy to do is eat 350 calories. So you just don't eat that granola bar or that granola bar and a half, and then you can avoid that 350 calories. But you have to work really freaking hard for a really long time if you want to burn off what you eat, okay? So that's why it's so important to manage what you eat if your goal is fat loss. That's the most important and the easiest way that you're going to keep yourself in a calorie deficit to encourage your body to burn fat, okay? But it's nice to use cardio as a way to kind of polish off a couple extra calories, a couple hundred extra calories per week. But it should not be the main way that you are tackling your fat loss. Because otherwise you're just going to have a really hard time and you're probably going to get burned out before you reach your goal. So that is the podcast for today. Make sure that you prioritize your heart health, not only for fat loss, but just to stay healthy and avoid developing heart disease, which is, a top cause of death in the US and worldwide as well. If you do take the time to take care of your heart health, you're going to notice that you have more energy, you're going to feel better overall, and you're also, reducing your risk of these other diseases, and you're less likely to have a stroke, right, or a heart attack. So it's super important, but you don't necessarily have to go to the gym. As you can see, you can do activities of daily living, or you can exercise at home. You don't necessarily need to go to the gym to get your heart rate up and exercise. But I hope that you found this little message today helpful. And let me know what kind of cardiovascular exercise. What are you going to do to take care of your health? What kind of exercise are you going to do? And then are you going to be making any of the other changes that we talked about in the beginning, that little list of things that you can do to improve your heart health? Or is there anything that you're going to be doing moving forward? That's the podcast for today. We did it. Look at us. Look at us. Who would have thought? Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Coaching Corner podcast. Again, I'm Jade Harrison, aka JD Gaines, and I'm so happy to have had you here. Make sure that you subscribe wherever it is that you are watching or listening to this podcast. And again, if you would like to join me while I'm live on my Twitch channel, just go to twitch.tv/JDGaines. That's twitch.tv/JAYDIGAINS. Follow me to get notified whenever I go live, and you can join me in my Twitch chat to ask your fitness questions or just hang out while I'm gaming. I'll see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure that you drink plenty of water, eat your protein, eat your veggies, and I'll see you soon.